Hello, hello. And welcome to the episode number 17 of DevsWall. And today is an honor to have with us. Uh, before saying hello, I'm going to explain he's a software engineer mainly focused on web development with more than 5 years of professional experience in different sectors like banking and financial. As described by coworkers, an out-of-the-box thinker that can help finding very specific issues. And also, I'm happy to share a hometown. We're both from our native Colima. How are you, Luis? Luis Hernández in the house. How are you?
Hey, hello, very good, and also very glad to be here.
Oh, it's our pleasure to have you here with us. First time we have a guy from Colima. Oh no, not the first time, to be honest. I think it's the second time, but I will be having. It will be good to have more people from Colima, our small state.
Yeah, world's
But
very small.
excellent. How's it going? Everything okay?
Yeah, everything's going fine. Actually enjoying the weather right now because it's a little bit colder than last week. So really enjoying the
Yeah,
new and colder weather.
it's kind of weather. We are on at this time we are in March, 2022. So in the season we are starting, so it's kind of strange. A lot of wind. Was really windy. It was starting to get hot, but wind makes it less hot. So yeah, but we'll have to wait till May. May is gonna be really hot as usual.
Pretty interesting.
But we're both from Colima, so we're not scared about hot things, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Great. All right, so first of all, a question I asked to everybody: How did you get involved into this software engineering area? What was your first
Well,
What was your first things in the software?
I think that it was development of very basic APIs. I remember we did a chat application like back when I started my software engineering career, and it was mainly for support of I don't remember exactly the details, but it was support from a specific software piece that the company that I was working for developed at the time, and we were trying to do a support chat for the clients to connect with us. It was, I think, 2016 or 2015. I don't remember exactly the year, but that was my initial experience with software engineer as a professional.
Nice, doing some chat. So you actually started more on full stack.
No, actually, I started on the back end and then transitioned to the front end, which I really loved.
All right, so you started on the dark. I don't know who people. I don't know what people call the dark side, back end or front end, but anyway. So actually, you started doing with using what framework on the back end? I'm curious, or what were you working on?
I was actually using Node.js. I remember it
Okay,
was version 0.10.36 or so. It was
okay,
still kind of in beta, but it
all
was
right,
Node.js my first experience.
nice, perfect. Um, and how was, because I know you're now focused on front end development. How was that transition, and why did you decide it, or was it like just the job that took you to the front end development, or how was that?
Yeah, it was mainly the job's requirement because when we finished the chat app, we were asked to do some mobile applications, and the mobile applications were developed with Ionic, which required everything to be done with web technologies. And that's how I hopped from the backend to the front end and started doing mobile applications, basically.
Nice. So you actually, okay. So basically, you've been doing JavaScript since backend with Node.js, then with Ionic and all that stuff. So actually, you started with kind of, I suppose, and then you moved
Yes.
to some other more in the front end web.
Yes.
All right, nice. And how did you enjoy that? I mean, how was that transition, or was it same? Just programming for you is same, or what do you enjoy most? At that time you did backend, and now that you do, I don't know, that stuff, Angular, React, all that stuff. What do you think?
I was laughing a bit because at the beginning it was pretty hard because on backend you usually only focus on the logic and solving like logic based problems, but on the front end you are more focused on things looking good, which at the beginning was pretty hard because I think that everyone can tell that CSS is hard to master and hard to do. So it was a funky transition. I was trying to position the buttons correctly and position the layouts correctly. Sometimes they didn't align properly on the different devices that we were working on because specifically with Android at the time, we got like the bigger screens trend at the moment, and it was pretty difficult to make our layouts to be responsive to those bigger screens. It was very hard to think in how things are looking instead of how things are working. But to be honest, I really enjoyed, and it was more of like small wins when I really saw something looking good instead of just something working. For me, it was like I am seeing what I'm doing, and I have a better sense of the things that I am creating, which I didn't have at the time with the backend. So even though the transition was hard, I really enjoyed doing front end, and I really enjoy doing it in today.
Nice. I understand. I mean, I think it's a typical thought by us developers. Maybe even myself, because I'm more focused. I'm consider myself full stack, anything, but a little bit more on backend. But yeah, as you said, when you see your product, or as you want it to be called, and there, be it a web page or an application, you see it there, and you see your layout, you see your front end working. But that's why I understand your case. I mean, I have faced that before. The little times I did some front end, it's like, oh, okay, you immediately see your work. It looks pretty. All that time you spend aligning stuff and messing with CSS and doing dirty things there. I have done that. I've done those dirty things as well. Not so much as a front end developer, but I sometimes have to do crazy JavaScripts just to do some stuff, crazy CSS inline stuff as well, just to keep with the like with a beautiful front end, or not a beautiful but an acceptable one. Putting those important tags that you shouldn't use in a lot of places, all that stuff, right? But that's more on design and CSS.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do want when you focus on the outer layer, or the in my ages we call it the presentation. Many years ago, when you work on on that part, you're involved in what your users are seeing, and you like, oh, this is cool, this is what we're delivering, this looks good. And on the back end it can be cool, but the same. I mean, you can maybe just call and, oh, my API works, that's cool, but it doesn't feel the same, right?
No, it does feel the same because at least I feel that the front end is more tangible. You can actually see it, you can interact with it. And with the backend, even though you can interact with it, it's not the same way because it's calling an API, receiving a response, but that's pretty much it. On the front end, you can see things reacting with each other, and how things connect differently, but in a visual manner. And since someone said, a YouTuber that I usually watch from music production, he says that we are visual species. I can understand that because I do front end. I really enjoy doing that because I see it working.
Yeah, it's more enjoyable in a way because most of many of us are visual. So yeah, I mean the thing that you deliver sense the satisfaction in a way. I mean, in it's also satisfying as a backend in a way that you deliver something or it's not that visual. Deliver an API. Oh, it works and the performance is good. There's no bugs and it's getting me the results and the pagination and all that. And it's also satisfying, but at the end, also seeing the product that your client, the user, it's a bigger satisfaction. And I totally get really cool. Also, I see before jumping to something. I mean, to these geeky topics. Well, it could be geeky as well, but related to software engineering, we can help noticing that you have many guitars back there. I'm now
Yeah.
located at another. I will call it my studio number 2 in my house because normally I at my small room up there, and I think I have the same rack that you have for the guitars, but you normally see them on the bottom. But you have them back there, and they look really cool. It's really a cool set. How many guitars do you have?
I own right now 6. One is actually due for delivery this week, probably on Friday. It says that it's gonna be here. And also one vase that you can see there, the very long one.
Oh, the bass one. Yeah, okay. Cool. Uh, Perfect. Let's talk about that. We'll get back to the software in IT topic later. I don't mind.
Sure.
I'm also a hobby musician and a guitar player as a hobby. I also play a little bit of piano and other stuff, but I'm also in the music hobby thingy. So, but how do you get involved in this? So have you been playing the guitar?
It's actually been a while. When I was, I think, 15 years old, I was
Uh-huh.
interested in music because I really loved seeing rock bands. Like, for example, I was very into Mago de Oz at that time. Also, I was very into System of a Down and more heavy stuff. And one friend of mine, actually my best friend of life, introduced me to the guitar. He was taking some classes and he asked me if I wanted to learn. So he lent me an acoustic guitar at the time, and I got into guitar classes. But something actually very funny happened because after my first class, I got an injury here in my wrist that broke, and I couldn't play for like the next month. And once I recovered from this one, I got another one the next day. I recovered because I fell very badly and I actually broke my wrist again. And that ended up adding another 2 months to my time without practicing guitar. So I was a little bit let down at the time, but my friend told me you can still learn by yourself. Just I will teach you how to read tablatures and you can start from there. And that's how basically it all started. I started learning The Man Who Sold the World by Nirvana, the cover, and an acoustic guitar. And then my mom gifted me my first electric guitar, which is actually the red one here. And that
Nice.
happened New Year's Eve in 2016. It's been kind of like, no, never mind. I don't have the dates right. It was 2009. It's almost 13 years since I had my first guitar.
Nice. What I'm curious, and anyone who watches this doesn't care, but I do care. Can we know the brands of your guitar? And I'm a geeky also on that stuff.
Sure. Actually, my first guitar is
Uh-huh.
the kind of like the economic brand from Washburn. It says Oscar
Hmm.
Schmidt or something like that. Let me grab it real quick.
Yeah, 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 sure.
Is basically this one. I modified it almost like 5 years ago with a pair of Seymour Duncans, the Hot Rod
Hmm.
something. I don't remember the name, but this is the first one. It's kind of like a Strat type. The white one is a gift from my wife from 2 years ago. It is a Squire Jazzmaster. That's actually one of the most comfortable guitars I can play sitting down. And the black
It's
one,
like a Fender, kind of like a Telecaster.
it's a Jazzmaster.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a cool one. Does it have double
Yeah, and it's a
coil
pretty
as well?
comfortable one.
All
Yeah,
right,
it has two humbuckers, but
humbuckers.
I
Yeah.
am planning to switch them from a pair of P90s later on this year.
Oh,
The
P90.
next one, I think it will be this one. This is actually from my brother-in-law. This is an Epiphone Les Paul standard,
Nice.
2013 or something. I don't remember exactly the name. This is pretty good, and actually sounds very good. It only has an issue with fretting on the very high frets.
Uh huh.
And the last one that I have on the rack, it was a gift from my nephew, and this is a Gibson Les Paul Studio.
Oof.
Um, it sounds pretty good, but it's heavy, very heavy. It's like 5 kilograms on my shoulders whenever I pick this up.
Man, it's really beautiful. Those two. I mean, I'm a Les Paul lover.
Oh,
I
really?
I have a well, I just have an Epiphone Les Paul Studio. No, not Studio.
Mm-hmm.
Les Paul Modern, which basically is the same as which is basically same as a Gibson, just manufactured in China. Same bells and same. It sounds really good. I have a. I'll share later some videos. My playing doesn't do that good to the guitar. Uh, sounds great, man. Sounds great. I normally use emulators for digital emulators connect to my computer. That's it. Because I would love to amp every time, but it's not easy. It's really, if you want the cool distortions, the overdrives, and all that stuff, you need to raise the volume and neighbors or not neighbors, but maybe my wife wouldn't enjoy that.
I can relate to that because I actually do the same.
Yeah.
I ended up buying a Pod Go from Line 6 and I use the models in there and also usually play with headphones. Sorry, what were you going to say?
The Line 6 stuff is really cool. Really cool for
Yeah.
emulation. That was ago that those were the great ones for emulation stuff. And what's your favorite guitar?
Yeah.
Or the one that you
It's
use most?
it's actually one that it's not on the rack. I have it in front of me. And as you said with the Epiphone, this is actually the kind of overseas brand. Not really, but this is a PRS,
Okay.
a Paul Reed Smith Standard 24, which I really love. It's light, very comfortable, sounds pretty good, and I
Man,
cannot put it down.
To be honest, when I 2 years ago, when I told you I have an Epiphone Les Paul Modern, that was a gift from my wife. My two options, well, the two I liked was the Les Paul and the PRS, and that one the PRS. I also like. I mean, I also like that Santana sound ish, and many other players that played PRS. That particular sound, is really, really, really nice. Those couple of sounds, that and the Les Paul sound for me. So I
Yeah.
think we we share similar. How do you say similar taste on guitars and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It will be good if we do some jamming one day.
It could be
I'm
good,
a
but
little
as you
bit
said,
rust.
yeah,
I'm kind of
but
rusty,
as
but
you
it will
said
be
as
good.
well,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
And also, my playing doesn't really translate very well with the amount of guitars, but as you can say, I can share some videos so you can see it for yourself.
Sure, sure. We will share all the links of your videos in the comments when we upload this episode in the comments or in the description or wherever we can share all. If you have any YouTube channel or in Facebook or wherever you have, we'll share them. So
Okay.
this is really cool. We already spent around 10 minutes talking about guitars, and it's cool to have some different side things up the area. But how do you feel having this hobby? As because I know many people in the tech area also have the guitar or the music as a hobby. Is it habit as well, or?
Yeah, I know a ton of people that are involved in software engineer that are musicians themselves. Some of them actually play at bars. They have live gigs. I know, for example, I work right now with a teammate that is also a drummer. I know bassists, I know guitarists, pianists, basically whatever instrument I have found in the software engineer, and they all try to do like music as a hobby. I'm not really sure why is that a common thing, but it's good to have something else to talk about with your teammates apart from software engineer. And as you said, we spend right now like 10 minutes, but I know that we can probably go for hours talking only about that. And it's good
Exactly.
to have it as well.
Yeah, I do agree. I remember like 10 years used to have a band. We played on the and a Wings Army, small bar here in Guadalajara. Couple of them actually, the singer and the keyboard player, they both work in Oracle as of now. Maybe, but later they work somewhere else. I don't know. But as of now, they work in the tech area. Basically, they're into software engineering as well. So yeah, it's a I think it's a common thing in our personality, or there's something there that it's common to find people involved in music as a hobby in the software engineering area.
Yes, it is.
It's really cool. All right, this was really cool stuff. I mean, we can do another episode just talking about guitars, or maybe some other kind of podcast. We talk about guitars and music as a hobby. I would enjoy that.
I
So,
really love that.
yeah. So going back to the geeky stuff and the software engineering stuff, you were telling me before you started as a front end using Ion. Which technology? What else did you use? Have you done any like changes, career changes, or not necessarily career changes, but changes in technology and all that stuff? Because I know front end frameworks so many. Maybe there are strong ones like React, like Angular, but I know there are tons. And JavaScript framework. How, how has been your career so far in that?
It's been pretty interesting. Starting with the first question, I started using AngularJS inside of Ionic since it's only on WebView. We started using AngularJS, like the first version. And it was actually very good. I enjoyed my time doing AngularJS, and my time at that company, I was only doing AngularJS. And also on my next one, I only did AngularJS, mainly focused on the accessibility part. But my main career shift was when I started working at a bank, when they started looking at, for whatever reason, bleeding edge technology for the backend At the time, ASP.NET Core was still in beta, and they started using that when it was called, I think, ASP.NET 5 or whatever. And I started working a bit on the backend side with C Sharp in that project. But when they started doing the front end, first they tried to do it in Razor, which is the template engine for ASP.NET. But they then switched to AngularJS, and I started getting my hands dirty again with AngularJS. And when I saw that the project was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, I researched the bundlers at the time, which were, I think, Browserify and also Webpack, when we started installing packages for the front end using Bower. I don't know if you remember, like the little birdie for Bower, but we started with that
Yeah.
and then switched to NPM for all of our package management. But it proved to be a challenge at first because, you know, banks are pretty regulated. You need to have like a use case and also justification about why you want to do the change. And it was pretty hard, but they accepted it. And I tried to push something else when we switched to Webpack, which was TypeScript. Um, and I think that that was the best decision that we could have made with the bank because the project grew. At the time that I ended the project, it was almost 500 modules or so, which more than 1,000 components. And doing that with plain JavaScript will have been a pain because, you know, JavaScript, you can only catch errors on the runtime. But with TypeScript, your editor and all your dev tooling can tell you, hey, there's something wrong here. You're trying to assign a string to a number, or you are trying to do something that is actually not what you meant to do. So I started doing TypeScript with AngularJS at the time. I actually created and published on NPM a little CLI that I remember it was called something like NGTS or something, which tried to mimic the Angular CLI because Angular 2 was out at the time, but we weren't migrating just yet. So I created a CLI similar to that one that suit our needs and that create everything that we needed for AngularJS with TypeScript and make sure that we can ease up the developer experience. Also, on the creation, or at least the NPM creation part of my career, I also created another package which was called Ionic Minify, if I'm not mistaken, which tried to accomplish minification and compression of images and also everything that we needed to make our bundle sizes smaller for Ionic applications. And that tried to solve the issue that we encountered when I started doing Ionic applications, where they were pretty big. They were like 100 megabytes an application at the time. And with that package, I think that I managed to reduce bundle sizes like by 40% or so, which was a pretty big deal. And I think that right now I only have one package left, which is a library for detecting idle, kind of like making sure that the user is not idle. And if you detect if it is idle, you can do certain actions, like, for example, logging out from your application or something. And once I stopped doing that, because I tried to focus my career on something else, we switched to Angular version 4 at the time. It was a pretty big shift because it has nothing to do with AngularJS version 1. Angular 4 is completely different. And the mindset you have to have is, it's like worlds apart. I don't know.
So it was from Angular 2, right? 2 forward. It was from Angular 2 onwards. It was like a very different world, right?
Completely different framework and non-compatible at all, which proved to be a challenge. Also, once I finished that project and the one that I am working right now, I made the switch to React actually. And I work with React and TypeScript. And at the same time, I haven't left the backend like for all. And I started doing some Golang in November last year. I actually learned that month and tried to ship something on Golang. it was a pretty good challenge, and I learned a ton. But right now, I'm still mostly focused on the front end. React, TypeScript, doing unit testing with Jest, using Tailwind CSS, which is a pretty good library, at least for my taste, and a little bit of style components, which, to be honest, I'm not that into CSS in JS, because for me, it's like they are two different things. They shouldn't be together, basically. But I think that can summarize my career, basically going from AngularJS in Ionic to AngularJS in the web, then going to Angular 4 on the web, and then to React with TypeScript on the web.
About between those changes, what was the biggest change, or how say the most out of those? How do you say the most mind-blowing change, or were they just kind of small changes in the way, in your
From
opinion?
from my perspective, I think AngularJS 1 to Angular 2 was the biggest change.
Nice.
Because you need to change your entire mindset about how the framework works. But going from Angular, the newest, to React is actually easier than I think everyone can think. Because you're already thinking in components, you're already thinking on how to separate things, how to pass information to a component, and how to, emit something to the parent one.
Okay.
And in React, they are similar, very similar concepts. I can also dare to say that they are the same concepts. And I could apply a ton that I learned from Angular 2 and onwards to React. And at the same time, I had the also like the privilege to work with TypeScript in Angular, and applying that into React is actually pretty easy, and it has benefits to the project. But the differences are not that big, like they are from Angular 1 to Angular 2. Those are the biggest differences for whatever reason, even though it was from the same team.
Or yeah, it is. I mean, I'm just stating I'm not an expert on front end, and already stated that. But I know some people that preferred AngularJS over Angular 2 onwards, and some others that don't think that Angular 2 is more structured and more. I don't know. What is your opinion? This is just a heads up, everyone. This is subjective. This is just opinion based. So we don't know the truth. What is your opinion on that?
To be honest, since I worked on a pretty big project, I am more biased towards an opinionated framework that can give you everything out of the box and that have like a style guide on how to do some things. Because when you work on a project that big, and with that big I mean we were a team composed of more than 50 developers working on the same application, it is a big deal to have something organized and something in place, very structured, that you follow in order to do some things. With React, I really like the freedom that it gives you, but at the same time, it's very prone to have, like, for example, 3 or 2 libraries that do the same thing. I encountered in one project that they were using the package Axios to do HTTP requests to our API. They used the native window.fetch, and at the same time, they were using jQuery Ajax to also do API calls for whatever reason. There wasn't something in place.
Maybe that was like a design issue, architecture issue, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, those kind of stuff happens in rapid agile development. You just want to do stuff. Sometimes you need to take a step, and we're gonna use for this stuff at least some kind of documentation, right? For this library or this other, but with different approaches. And as a new developer, you won't know how to proceed, right? I mean, it happened not just in front; it also happens in backend and everywhere, right? Clear design on what are the patterns.
Yes.
And regarding latest to Angular, and I mean, because at the end you move from Angular to React. How can you compare those two? I mean, those are two big ones. Maybe we can include Vue.js as well, or maybe there are some others that I don't know. But maybe comparing these two big ones, what are your thoughts? Did you work on those two pros and cons, and or just opinion on those ones?
I think that the biggest pro of Angular is the opinionated part for bigger projects, for enterprise projects. I think that there's the conception that actually Angular was built for enterprise projects because of that. Once you pass the learning curve of knowing, like, for example, what are the different modules that you can use for basic things like routing or HTTP requests, it's pretty easy. You can move pretty fast with Angular on bigger projects. At the same time, since it is a pretty closed environment, it doesn't let you add external libraries. Like the example with Tailwind CSS, it was a bit of a pain, at least 2 years ago, to add the library to work with Angular. So it wasn't that easy as someone will expect. Contrary to React, React's pretty easy to integrate with anything that you already know. For example, I can tell that this project that has 3 libraries mixed for the same purpose was because they were evolving over time. Like probably they were using jQuery for DOM manipulation at the time. And now that they discovered React, they were starting migrating some things. And that is actually the good thing about React. You can start moving the UI without actually touching the other parts, because since it is only a library, it only does one thing and it does it very good. And also, I can actually tell that when I started working with React, I missed some things from Angular. Dependency injection is a big one that I really missed from Angular. There was something in the Angular router, which was called router outlets, that basically let you put a piece in the UI that change depending on the route you have in the URL. Like a big example that you can have is like the Twitter interface. You know, always you have a sidebar, you always have a box at the top, and also you have like the latest trends at the very right. The content that changed is in the middle. So with routed outlets, that is pretty easy to do. You can put your, like, I don't know, your sidebar here, your trends here, and a routed outlet at the very center. And then this content is the only one that will change depending on the route. As I think last year or before React Router v6 was out, that was not possible, or at least as easy as I would like to in React. Now they have routed outlets and it's pretty good. I really like it, so I don't miss that like a lot. There is one thing that I would really love from Angular, putting something similar to React, which is called route guards. And on certain applications, like a very easy role-based applications, like you have an administrator, you have a reader, a writer, a creator, or whatever, you have different roles. And depending on the roles, there are certain routes in the application or certain pieces of the application that need to be activated depending on the role. With Angular, it's pretty easy. You put a route guard, you say, analyze my token, analyze my role. If the role matches, then I can go to the particular URL I want to, and that's it. With React is not that easy. You have to add the logic, obviously, but that I haven't found an easy way to do it. Is usually having like a higher order component that wraps the other one that I want to be protected, and then analyze the same, basically the same logic, analyze the token, check the role, and if that is correct, well, return the component, or if not, redirect me to somewhere else. But unfortunately, with the higher order components that I have worked with my projects, they are not that easy to work with, and also not that understandable for newcomers to the project, which is a pretty big deal.
All right. Interesting insights. With other framework, I mean, besides Ionic, like Vue or any other? Or...
Yeah, actually, I worked one project. It was kind of like a social media thing or multimedia
Okay.
heavy with Vue. And I really enjoyed my time working with Vue because it's like the perfect mix from the good things from React, like JSX and declarative UI, and the directives from Angular JS. It's like the perfect mix for me. And I enjoyed my time working with it. The thing that I want to tell everyone, especially with Vue versus React, because I know that there are some debates on Twitter. From my perspective, and remember, this is only opinion based, I enjoyed more Vue because the core team from Vue is the one that it's providing you with the other pieces. They provide you the router, they provide you the state management, they provide you packages for different things. With React, at least when I started in React, almost everything came from third parties. And for someone that actually knows their JavaScript ecosystem, if package says in npm that there wasn't been a new version like for 2 months, you can actually tell that package is abandoned. Because as you said at the beginning, there is always something new, a new framework, a new JavaScript framework coming out. And if something it's like 2 months or 2 weeks without an update, you can tell that that thing is going to be abandoned. And that was my biggest fear with React, because since everything came from third parties, it's unfortunate that we cannot rely 100% on them. And I understand because it's open source and they are basically giving their time for free to everyone to use their stuff. And I know at a certain point, those things cannot be viable for them because they are spending time on something that it's not giving them money or they're not earning anything from there. And that was my biggest fear, that these things became unsupported and we cannot use them anymore, or we found vulnerabilities that are not going to be patched. And that for us to patch it, it will be pretty difficult. So that is something that I would like everyone to take a look when comparing Vue to React and check what do they value the most. Did they value the libraries, or at least the core ones, to be provided by the same team that provides you the library, the UI library? Or do you value the kind of freedom and not as opinionated approach that React has, which I know that a ton of people love, at least on Twitter.
Okay. So as I understand, I mean, again, I'm not an expert. I don't know much about frontend, but so you're saying that in Vue, the core team delivers the core components of the framework, or at least the most important ones, or can you use different kind of components, or is it, or how does...
The best example that I can give you is Vue, the library that you use to construct your UI, and the Vue router, which is the package that allows you to route your application, are provided by the same team, whereas React, the UI, is provided by the React team, and React Router is actually provided by another team that has a new product, which is called Remix. So they are different. And even though they work very well with each other, that's something that I always feared.
Nice. I think I got it. Maybe it's related to the size of the... I mean, it's a big team. I mean, it's owned by Facebook. Maybe Vue is...
I can tell it is.
Still, yeah. Maybe Vue is... Let's see how it evolves. But it interesting insights for all those front-end guys. I mean, it's really interesting thoughts. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I wish I could make some opinion, but I don't know much about front-end. I know that there are new frameworks out there, and they will they look pretty cool, and they can you can do pretty cool stuff. And now with mobile and hybrid development, it's really cool stuff with React Native, with Flutter, and even well, previously I'm more on the Microsoft.NET world, and even with Xamarin, and now they have Microsoft has this I don't know how is it called, Mono UI Laser. I don't know the exact name, but there is like a new hybrid model for Microsoft, which is kind of in beta, and that looks cool. Maybe kind of React Native-ish. But yeah, all that stuff is all this technology area is moving fast, and it sounds really cool. And it's at the end, it's the idea is to make things simpler for developers in a way, to be able to achieve more, to deliver more stuff in less time, with less developers, with less resources. That's
Yep.
it. What are the yep,
Sorry.
you were saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would really like to give people a little advice that would have helped me before on the JavaScript ecosystem, because as you said, it moves pretty fast. But my advice to everyone is do not focus a ton on the new thing that is coming out, because it's gonna have like a transition time, or it's gonna take some time for it to actually gain traction when it becomes relevant to the industry. We know that it is actually something exciting and that we want to try some things that are new and shiny, but at the same time that can lead you to burnout because you're trying to keep up with the industry, which is JavaScript world is pretty hard. So try to focus on what you love and what you like to do right now, and be aware of the things that are new, totally, but do not focus a ton of time on that, because it will kind of like eat you alive if you try to keep up with everything that is new and try to learn everything about it. Um, and that will lead you to basically be burned out pretty quick. That happened to me, and that's an advice that I can give everyone. And I hope that that helps.
Great advice. I totally agree 100% with what you say. I might give the typical advice lately. Not focus on the framework. Focus more on your logic, on algorithms, on data structures, on that stuff. Focus more on the more topics, maybe related to computer science. I don't know how to call them. I mean, algorithms. Just be able to solve problems. Because I mean, people and projects and the companies that hire you already know. I mean, they already have their own frameworks and their own way to work with stuff. Unless it's a specific role with specific frameworks. I mean, a lot of jobs are you will have to do a code challenge. You pick your language, and people will know that you're able to resolve stuff. I mean, you can have a specific framework during your work. But yeah, otherwise you will get really anxious and trying to learn so many stuff that are on trends, and it's not worth it. Just do the stuff. I second hugely what you say. Do the stuff you love. If you like working JavaScript, you like working in Java, you like working C#, Python, do stuff on that. And do maybe if you want to do some code challenges, you just do them. Or if you want to do some projects, pick whatever you like and just be passionate and be professional on what you do, and you will have success. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
All right, it was really interesting, Luis. Really a pleasure to have you in this episode. Really, especially when we talk about guitars. That was really good. I would enjoy to have you any other time here. You will always be welcome.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed my time
It
as
was
well.
a really cool
And talking with you was pretty good.
All right. Thank you so much for this this time, this episode, who watched his till the end. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you. Thank you. Bye bye.